Hello everyone, my name is One Gets Bread, and today, for all of you, I have a review of this book here. This is Marvel Masterworks, Doctor Strange Volume 1, Master of the Mystic Arts. Now, in this book, it goes over the very famous Marvel character, Dr. Stephen Strange, and it covers some of his earliest appearances. Dr. Strange first appeared in 1963 in Strange Tales number 110. As you can see, this is where this book starts off in his very first appearance in the Strange Tales lineup of Marvel Comics, back all the way into the 60s. So as we go through the comics, we have some appearances of some of his main enemies and as well as some of his allies. We have the origin of Doctor Strange, where he was a very brilliant surgeon, where he unfortunately got into a car accident, and then he goes to the lair of the Ancient One. And then at first he's kind of a skeptic, but then he starts like opening his third eye, literally, and he catches the third eye, the Ancient One's apprentice, Mordo. Baron Mordo is in this origin comic where he's in Strange Tales number 100 and get back here. Strange Tales number 115, that's his origin. So when we go into that comic, we see him retelling his origin, where he was again just a neurosurgeon who became tragically damaged in that car accident, and then he goes on to meet this other strange world, so to say, of all this mysticism and all this magic stuff. Now, what I found interesting in that origin story is that he actually saves the Ancient One without having his powers yet. He finds Baron Mordo, who's in his plans of defeating the Ancient One, and he brings this to the attention of the Ancient One, and then the Ancient One rewards him. He says, I want to learn magic, and I want to become a defender of all good. So that's where we get to hear where he actually becomes Doctor Strange. Moving on, we have some of his earlier adventures that feature him just battling Mordo, his arch nemesis, and sometimes he'll fight other dangerous magical beings such as Nightmare. There's an issue where he's fighting Nightmare in the Dream Dimension, which is very interesting. I really love the art here of Steve Ditko. Him and Stan Lee invented Doctor Strange in these Strange Tales comics. And then there's just more trials and tribulations with Mordo's attempts to try and stop Doctor Strange and reclaim his title as the student of the Ancient One, as well as surpassing the Ancient One in force of his magical talents. And Strange can't allow that, because in these comics it makes it very clear that Strange swore an oath to protect the world from all evil beings that will use magic for their own power and their own gain and their own villainy. So we need Doctor Strange clearly, especially in these settings where there's like these dark forces coming after all that is good. So we have Doctor Strange in these stories that are defending everything that is good. We also have this story where he comes across Loki, who tricks him into stealing the hammer of Thor. So a little bit of an Easter egg or a cameo appearance of Chris Hemsworth's character, of course. And so he uses some magic here to trick Doctor Strange into stealing the hammer. What I find really interesting, actually, in this panel specifically, that hand spell that he uses here, it kind of reminds me of one of the scenes in the Doctor Strange 2 movie where he uses a similar spell to lift up a lamppost to attack this creature in the beginning of the movie. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Maybe this is where they pulled that. And at the end of this comic, Thor does get his hammer back. He's about to fly to the sanctum because he senses evil, but Loki, of course, teleports out of there before Thor could lay the smackdown on him. The next issue, we have Strange again dealing... It's kind of like a weekly Monster of the Week kind of thing with these comics, which is interesting. It just shows some of his abilities as a sorcerer. He kind of has a showcase of what spells he's going to be using. And in this In this comic, we have this mysterious woman who appears before Doctor Strange from a different time period, and he needs to figure out what's happening to her. So he goes back in time using this spell where if a candle burns all the way out, he can't return to the present. So he has to be careful there when he's traveling. The Ancient One gives him some aid into going back in time, but he can't bring him back unless he returns before the candle burns out. So it's a very interesting kind of time mechanic that they have there. So he goes back into the past, he defeats this evil wizard, and right before the candle is burning out, he's traveling, but then it does burn out, this is spelling doom for Strange, as that candle is his only likelihood of getting back. But he actually uses his amulet. It's not called the Eye of Agamotto yet, but we have the amulet where it's this eyeball where sometimes it'll fly up onto his head, right where his third eye would be. And that's how he gets some extra powers, or it amplifies his powers in order to let him use like more mental attacks and whatnot. But what's interesting, let me go and find it. The Eye of Agamotto is actually separate from his amulet in these earlier stories, which I always thought to be interesting. And in that issue, as we could see, the big reveal, that mysterious woman from earlier was Cleopatra. What a twist. I wasn't expecting that. I was like, wait, so where are they going with this? And apparently he saved Mark Antony in the past, and now Cleopatra is able to return. So it's a very interesting comic. And then, of course, we have this next Strange Tales where Mordo and him, this is basically like a climax of a fight where Mordo and Strange are jumping everywhere around the globe trying to best each other at becoming the best magician on Earth. And so we have this cool set of panels where it's just amazing. They're just jumping through all like these historical landmarks and different dimensions, and I really love the art. It's just wonderful to look at. And of course, he has the Ancient One captured. Unfortunately, Mordo seems to have one here. But of course, Doctor Strange will stand up for good, and he'll defeat Mordo in this issue. And what's interesting is, in one of these issues that he does do this, the Ancient One will reward Doctor Strange with his outfit that he has in the comics right now, where it's blue and gold and has all these tassels. He gets his cloak of levitation. That story is at the end of when he defeats Dormammu, as he gets into the dimension of Dormammu when a messenger of Dormammu tries to send a warning, basically, to the Ancient One, but in his old state, the Ancient One can't fight Dormammu anymore. So Doctor Strange vows to protect Earth from Dormammu, and he goes into his dimension, and what he's met with are all these different magic traps and all these obstacles that he must fight. And again, it's very Steve Ditko here with all the different swirls and all those patterns. I really like it. All those funky colors, that is Steve Ditko, and it's all in here. This is Steve Ditko's style, and I really like it. You also meet Clea in this series of stories. It's actually 2 comics that tell the story of him and Dormammu meeting for the first time, and this is where Clea is introduced. Clea is, of course, Doctor Strange's wife in the later comics, and she's an important character due to her relationship with Dormammu's sister Umar. But that isn't mentioned here. That you just know as the reader. Right now in the comics, if you're reading this version of Strange Tales, you just know that her and Dormammu are related somehow. So they go back and forth, and Doctor Strange realizes that Dormammu is actually protecting some of the... there's innocent people just living in the dark dimension, and Dormammu to them is actually a savior, because he has this barrier that's protecting his realm and those people from the mindless ones, which are these like golems that just fight and destroy everything. So what's interesting is you have this flip side of Dormammu where he's just protecting his people, and so we need to keep him alive, because if we kill him, then that energy barrier will just let the mindless ones get in and kill all the innocent people in the dark dimension. So Strange has like this kind of, should I do this or should I not, when he comes to fighting Dormammu. So what happens is actually very interesting. Strange helps Dormammu by re-erecting that barrier, that magical protection barrier that prevents the mindless ones from coming in and killing everyone. And so Dormammu, he's kind of like Strange's, I guess he marries Strange's pride with his his narcissism a little bit. So I guess that's what he's like a mirror of those two qualities that Doctor Strange like gave up when he became Sorcerer Supreme, you know, because when he was a doctor, he was very narcissistic and just full of himself. I think those are merged into Dormammu. He has that kind of hubris to him, and so when he gets help from Doctor Strange, he doesn't really like it, gets kind of mad, but Doctor Strange makes a demand where he will never attack Earth, and he should let Clea go free. So at least good was able to triumph there, where he got rid of the prison where Clea was being held, and he returned the Ancient One. The Ancient One actually was being held captive also by Dormammu, but by means of a spell, so now he's able to use more of his powers at full strength. Very nice. And because he saved Earth, because he saved the Ancient One, Doctor Strange is awarded his talismans and his current costume in the Marvel comics here, and all the more recent stuff. So you can see he has this red cloak of levitation, which he now uses, and of course his amulet is now more like the Eye of Agamotto, which is very interesting, where he finally earned that. And speaking of which, here's the actual Eye of Agamotto in the comics. So it isn't his amulet per se, but it's like this locator device, which is very interesting to me. I wouldn't have expected it to be like a locating device where it's separate from his amulet in the comics. I did not know that. And then the last issue of note that I want to talk about would be this one right here, where Doctor Strange is kind of slipping into the public eye a bit. He's going out in public and he stumbles upon this newscaster service thingy where they're having like a podcast on the news live talking about like black magic and all these supernatural stuff and all this crazy stuff that's been happening. They find this little totem here from Peru, so they went on like an archaeological dig and they found that. And some crazy stuff happens with that statue. So it belongs to Tiburo. Tiburo is like this dimensional like dictator. There he is. He has like this wand that has some pretty funky powers too, and Doctor Strange defeats him because he's holding innocent people captive in his dimension. And so what happens is Doctor Strange does save the men after a crazy looking battle right there in these panels, and he mind wipes them because he doesn't want the knowledge of these mystical enemies and artifacts and whatnot to impact the world of man. He doesn't want everyone to know about these things, because if they did, it would put him greater risk at attacks on their well-being from these dimensional evil forces. So it's a very interesting thing that they're setting up Doctor Strange. I really like it as a whole. Stanley and Steve Ditko killed it when they wrote these Strange Tales series. And yeah, so that's my review of Doctor Strange, my Master of the Mystic Arts, from the mighty Marvel Masterworks. There we go. Some alliteration on the side there. I really like it. Alright, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.